New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring. New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Live from a secure concrete bunker somewhere in Ohio, New Thought Media Network presents Pastor Michael Mangus with Friday's Fireside Chat, spiritual conversation for today. Here he is from the secret radio room, surrounded by thousands of watts, Pastor Michael Mangus.
Well, good evening to everyone across the United States and also around the world. It is time once again for another fun-filled, thrill-packed, and always exciting edition of the Fireside Chat here on the New Thought Media Network. Pastor Michael Mangus with you this evening, again broadcasting from the super secret radio room in a secure concrete bunker somewhere around Akron, Ohio. That is so top secret that even... and he cringes when I say this, my boss, the Chief Inspirational Officer of the New Thought Media Network, the Reverend Robert Brzezinski, even he does not know where the super secret concrete bunker and radio room is located. All right, good to see everyone this evening. We have a wonderful show for you. So if you could, please let us know here in the comments. We would really appreciate it. We are taping this evening because of our special guest, but if you would like to leave a comment, please do so. Or for all my shy people out there, I know you're out there, but you don't comment. So go to pastormichaelmangus@gmail.com. pastormichaelmangus@gmail.com. Would love to talk to you. Now, it's really difficult for me to read the emails while I'm broadcasting. However, during the week, I go ahead and I take a look at your emails. And again, thank you so very much for sending them to pastormichaelmangus@gmail.com. The purpose of our fireside chat here is to always to talk about contemporary issues from a New Thought perspective. And as I keep saying over and over again, I want us to have a new thought about what is going around us, not only in the United States, but also globally. And again, you do not have to agree with me. We play the disclaimer because we think it's funny, myself and Diego. But we also play it because that we want you to clearly know that these are my viewpoints and opinions. They do not represent the network. They do not represent Centers for Spiritual Living. They are my viewpoints, my opinions. I want us all, though, to start thinking deeply about what is going on in the world and our part in it. Again, we talk about oneness every single week at our centers, that we're all one. Well, if we're all one, then we are also a part of the solution. Okay? A happy belated St. Patrick's Day to everyone. I'm going to show you something here. What do you think? Huh? Is that me? Happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone. That was yesterday. I hope you had a great day. Joining us by phone here in the second half of our program, we are very honored to have with us New Thought scholar and author of the Principles of New Thought, the Reverend Dr. April Moncrieff, who will be talking with us about how to have a true Lent. We're now in that 40-day period before Easter or Resurrection Sunday on the Christian calendar. Dr. April will share some insights on how to prepare for your springtime, your blooming forth, your resurrection season. And just to let you know that all of April Moncrieff's books are on Amazon. That's with 2 F's and not 1. If you go to 2 F's, you'll get Dr. Moncrieff. If you go to 1 F, you'll get some other author. Okay. So again, please check out all of her books, including my favorite one, Marvin the Money Cat. Teaching prosperity principles to our youngsters. So Dr. April Moncrieff will be our guest here in the second half of our program. This is the first broadcast that we've presented after the sudden passing of my good friend, colleague, and broadcast partner, the Reverend Dr. Charlotte Stokes Manning. Her memorial service is going to be tomorrow here on the New Thought Media Network. We're going to rebroadcast it at 2 o'clock. However, if you would like to tune in to the Unity of Washington, D.C.'s YouTube channel, you can go ahead and you can watch it live. The reason we're doing it that way instead of rebroadcasting it is because of sometimes that the internet kind of chops things up. So the fine people over at the Unity of Washington, D.C., Tracy, their wonderful AV person, their wonderful media person, is providing for us, again, a very clean copy of the service. So we'll be rebroadcasting that here on the New Thought Media Network at 2 o'clock Eastern Time. And we may rebroadcast it on Sunday evening. We'll have to see if we can get permission to do that. I miss my friend deeply. Words cannot express the amount of loss that I have here. I received a Facebook message over the weekend that told me to quit putting videos up on Dr. Manning's Facebook page and to put them on my own. Now, since that individual did not give me an opportunity to talk about it, and also they didn't have the courtesy enough to go ahead and to call me or to get a hold of me, it's real easy to do that. Even if you emailed me at pastormichaelmangus@gmail.com, you can get a hold of me. I wanted to explain a little bit why, because again, if one person put that up, I bet you other people are thinking the same thing. Yours truly has been Charlotte's friend and producer for a long time. Why do you think she called me her roadman? That's because that I helped get her into places that normally that she would not get invited. So if there was one person who was a promoter of Dr. Manning, it was yours truly. I have access to Charlotte's Facebook account because we rebroadcast her Sunday evening masterclass. Now, after taking a look at the page after this comment that was put on my messenger service, I noticed that the remembrances of her were getting overshadowed by my prayer videos that I posted last week. So out of respect here, I have not posted any videos except I will post this one and also her memorial service tomorrow. I want to make real clear here that I have not been contacted by the family or her home church or her minister about anything that I've posted. Now, I can just hear Dr. Manning saying to me now, Roadman, remember to forgive and pick your battles. So again, out of respect last week, I have limited my video postings. Even though whoever sent me the request did not have a conversation with me. That's what I wanted. So the video that we're doing right here and also the memorial service will be my final postings unless requested by the family or the church. And as an administrator of her page, I could have taken down some of the videos that I saw because they could be labeled as self-promotion on whoever posted them. However, I didn't do that because they were respectful and it was their way of remembering Dr. Manning. Again, the request to limit the videos on my end was made by one person. And again, not by the family and friends of Charlotte, who have, again, all of my contact information. I wanted to clear that up tonight because my intent here, especially with the prayer videos, were to comfort the friends and family with prayer, because that's what I do. I actually do pastor. To comfort the family and friends of those who mourn the loss of Charlotte. And especially, the videos were not posted for self-promotion of me or of this network. So Dr. Manning's memorial service will be held tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern at the Unity of Washington, D.C. If you would like to attend, please give them a call or just go ahead and watch it online at 11 o'clock Eastern Time, or the rebroadcast on Dr. Manning's Facebook page and also on the New Thought Media Network will be at 2 Eastern tomorrow. Okay? And anyone who would like to talk to me, it's Pastor Michael Mangus at gmail.com. Let's put that banner up here again. Pastor Michael Mangus at gmail.com. That's how you can get a hold of me. Okay, time for the news here. And lots of things happening here. Our first news story this evening talking about the Ukraine. Russia's invasion of the Ukraine is showing no signs of letting up. At least one Russian missile was striking a city less than 50 miles from the Polish border. Elsewhere in the Ukraine, at the city of Mariupol is under siege and suffering 50 to 100 attacks a day, its city council said. Casualties were also reported in Kyiv today after debris from a downed rocket sparked a fire at a residential building. In addition to the Ukrainian lives lost during the attack, thousands of Russian troops have also been killed. And the reason being is because that we have supplied here in the U.S., we have supplied anti-tank rockets to be able to stop the onslaught of the Russian tanks. U.S. and NATO officials also told CNN now that Russia appears to be struggling to resupply those forces as troop morale is dropping. So what's happening is some of the troops are saying, this is not my battle here. What they're doing is they're puncturing their own fuel tanks and giving their tanks over to the Ukrainians. Isn't that interesting? Meanwhile, the Ukrainian resistance is holding on, backed by world leaders who are condemning Russian President Vladimir Putin's aggression. In his latest pointed attack against Putin, President Joe Biden, called him a murderous dictator and a pure thug. Wow. And yesterday, the House of Representatives passed a bill to suspend normal trade relations with Russia, the latest effort by U.S. lawmakers to inflict economic pain on the Kremlin for its unprovoked invasion. So our prayers for the Ukraine continue here. And please keep the high watch by knowing peace for that region and also other war-torn areas of the earth. War is a very outdated method for solving disputes. So pray with me the prayer of protection for the Ukraine, please. Let the light of God surrounds them. Let the love of God enfolds them, the power of God protects them. And the presence of God watches over them, that wherever they are, God is, and all is well. Ministers and practitioners from Centers for Spiritual Living have been in contact with our centers in the Ukraine. And hopefully I will have one of the practitioners who have been in contact with them. Hopefully we will have her on next week. And I have a story here in a few moments on how old-fashioned technology is making a big difference in getting information to the Ukraine and also to Russia. Isn't that interesting? More to follow here on the New Thought Media Network. And yes, still in the news, our favorite topic, coronavirus. It was 2 years ago, I think it was this week, that we started the Friday evening fireside chat in Pittsburgh, because I wanted a way to stay in touch with our people over there. So from CNN, only about 1.7 million people in the U.S., less than 1% of the total population. They live in counties where the CDC is still recommending universal indoor masking. While this is a positive step towards normalcy, scientists are paying close attention to the uptick in COVID-19 cases in Europe and Asia as a possible indicator of what could happen in the United States. In the UK, cases are rising due to the increased transmissibility, say that 3 times, of the virus and the waning immunity of the vaccines. COVID-19 is also making a resurgence in China, and the country's leaders vowed to minimize the economic impact of the spike in cases. And separately, Moderna and also Pfizer have asked the FDA to allow a 4th vaccine dose for any adult who has gotten the initial vaccine booster. All right, as I have said over and over and over and over again, follow the science. Unless your doctor has told you not to, please consider getting the shot. And again, that's been the right response to this pandemic. And again, 2 years ago, this is how the Fireside Chat got started, when I needed a vehicle to be able to talk to my people. All right? Let's go to our last news article here, which is a little longer than normal, but I wanted to make sure that we get this in. Shortwave radio is back. Radio Miami International, or WRMI, is working with Shortwaves for Freedom to transmit news to Russia and the Ukraine during the war. This is an article from the Associated Press. When commercial shortwave radio station, Radio Miami International, which operates under the call letters of WRMI, got its start in 1989. Its primary focus was to help Cuban exiles in Miami legally transmit programs to their homeland. And since then, the station has brought news during all kinds of trying times, the Gulf War, hurricanes, earthquakes, and other natural disasters. Now, 30 years later, at a time when Instagram, TikTok, and other social media platforms rule when it comes to communication, WRMI finds itself in a very unique position during the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Working with several organizations and governmental groups, the station is now broadcasting news programs in both Russia and Ukrainian to those people who have access to shortwave radios. Jeff White, who's the station manager and owner of WRMI, says that we've been through all sorts of crises, and this is the biggest. The station in the past has sold blocks of airtime to organizations with their own programming, and mostly to religious organizations. If you take a look at their website, they mostly sell to religious organizations. In 2013, they learned of a commercial station, which was owned by Family Radio. I don't know if you remember Harold Camping or not, but they suffered a severe financial loss when Brother Camping, as he liked to be called, as Brother Camping went ahead and said the end of the world is going to happen. It didn't. So WRMI has 14 100,000 watt transmitters and 23 antenna arrays that can broadcast all over the world from their 1 square mile leased from a South Florida cattle rancher. So what they're trying to do here is to use this older technology to be able to broadcast into places where internet services are sporadic or they're being jammed. Now, shortwave radio can also be jammed too. That's why you put it on different frequencies and you constantly change the frequency. So why do I mention this tonight? Well, because yours truly is a big radio geek who holds both amateur and commercial radio licenses from the Federal Communications Commission. And much of the world does not have internet access. So my intent here, I'm setting an intention here this evening. I don't normally do this, but I wanted to this evening. My intent here is to get New Thought Radio and media on shortwave. Radio is not dead. And in times of crisis, radio sometimes is the only means of getting communication to the public. And I know of one New Thought minister who has his weekly program on a shortwave radio station, and we're going to have him on in a few weeks also. And also because of the internet, many governments, including the United States, have cut back on their shortwave presence on the airwaves. And when the internet is blocked, radio is sometimes the only way to get information to those areas. Now, if someone this evening just happens to have $1 million that they would like to donate for sale right now is the old Christian Science broadcasting facility down in South Carolina. And they're offering it for a bargain price, including land. 300 some acres of land for only $1 million. So if you would like to get in contact with me, it's pastormichaelmangus@gmail.com. Oh, that would be wonderful. Would love to be able to broadcast this message to the whole world. All right. Well, I'm done with all of my stuff here. Let's go to announcements and then we'll take a break. And then our special guest this evening here coming up is the Reverend Dr. April Moncrieff, who is a New Thought scholar and also an author of many, many books, including children's books about New Thought principles. So from our announcements this evening here, yours truly is currently parking himself at Summit CSL. If you would like more information about our offerings, go to summitcsl.org. There you will find information about our wonderful Sunday gatherings online at 10:30 Eastern. That's 7:30 in the morning Pacific time. I know it's early, but we have a great service. Would love to have you join us here on Zoom. So go on to summitcsl.org. There you will have all the Zoom information to get onto our call. And this Sunday, we will continue our March theme on beauty with our spiritual director, practitioner Diana Mangus. She'll be speaking on God's expressing beauty through nature. So go on to summitcsl.org for more information how to join our Zoom call. And our service is also simulcast on the Summit Spiritual Center of Akron Facebook page. And also our Facebook page also has past broadcasts of the Fireside Chat and yours truly when he's praying on the New Thought Media Network. Okay. Just go to ntmedia.org for a current schedule. We have so many programs that, again, if I was to start, what would happen is we'd never get to talk to Dr. April. So please just go to ntmedia.org, check on all of our offerings, and we really do appreciate your support. Again, we have the opportunity here to reach the world. I have the opportunity here from my studio here to reach the world. Isn't that exciting? To share with everyone this very positive and practical spirituality for the 21st century. So join us, please. Join us by donating. Go to ntmedia.org/donate. There you can give a very generous one-time gift, or if you would like to do what I do, and that is give on a monthly basis. Again, that helps us stabilize our finances and also that we're able to set budgets, pay salaries, and do other things by your continued support. So go to ntmedia.org/donate, and we appreciate every single one of you. All right. Time to take a break, and then we'll be back with much more. And it's really good to see everyone this evening. This is the Friday evening Fireside Chat here, and only here, on your New Thought Media Network.
Media Network is on the rise. We're looking to grow with you. Do you have technical media experience or perhaps a desire to learn? Are you willing to volunteer your precious time and attention? We share this message to benefit all. If you possess a computer with a camera and a microphone, we will share our knowledge with you. Behind the scenes or being the star, let us bless our one. Contact us at info@ntmedia.org.
The views and opinions expressed by Pastor Michael Mangus are generally right. However, they are his own and do not reflect the views and opinions of New Thought Media Network, Centers for Spiritual Living, or any other person living or dead. As they say in the 12-Step Recovery Program, take what you like and leave the rest. Here again is Pastor Michael.
It is a real pleasure this evening to have as my special guest on the phone, Dr. April Moncrieff. April Moncrieff is an author, teacher, counselor, and lifelong student of metaphysical spirituality. She is an ordained New Thought minister, and she has diplomas in advanced studies from the Unity School of Christianity, continuing education program, and she also holds master's and doctorate degrees from Emerson Theological Institute, where she is a member of the faculty. She has taught classes, conducted meditation groups, and lectured on New Thought subjects for many, many years. And she's also published poetry in New Thought magazine, in Unity magazine, and also created a special blog called Spiritual Seed Thoughts, Applying Truth Principles in Daily Lives. In addition to the Principles of New Thought, which is her book, which is available on Amazon, and several articles on spiritual subjects, she writes children's fiction with metaphysical themes. Her book, entitled Marvin the Money Cat, has introduced the idea of recognizing and celebrating the inner source of abundance to young readers. It is my privilege to introduce to you on the phone this evening the Reverend Dr. April Moncrieff. Good evening. Welcome to New Thought Media Network.
Oh, good evening, Pastor Michael. I'm glad to be with you tonight.
Oh, good. Thank you very much for joining us here on the phone. We have many questions here. The reason I wanted to have you on our program is to talk to us about how to have a true Lent. And I think that, especially during the Easter season, the preparation, we have 40 days. And many of us, again, we grew up in traditions where that the time of Lent was a time of deprivation. So talk to us about how we can incorporate Lent into our wonderful teaching and philosophy of New Thought.
Oh, that's an excellent question. Yes, it's traditionally true that we've thought in terms of giving things up for Lent, whether it's smoking or drinking. We usually think of some physical thing that we're giving up with a sense of reluctance and sort of a feeling a bit deprived, and that it's a big sacrifice we're making. And I think if we can sort of become a little more enlightened in the way we approach it and think rather of in terms of releasing things in our lives that perhaps no longer serve our highest good or the community, the world at large, or just our general spiritual unfoldment. That can all be part of the process of letting go, rethinking, which is really the original meaning of the word penitence or repentance. It means to rethink, from the Latin word pento pentare. And we know in New Thought that everything begins at the level of thought, and that if we want to and expect to have changes in our lives or in our outer circumstances, change always begins at the level of thought. So since Lent, that 40-day period, this 40-day period is really an ideal time to rethink. It's a great time for consecration, just as we prepare the soil of our gardens to bring forth beautiful and lavish flowers and later on fruit and harvest. We want to think of preparing the soil of consciousness to receive and also generate greater blessings all the way around. So it's sort of a twofold aspect, an aspect of letting go and an aspect of preparation for greater things to come.
If you're wondering who we're talking to this evening, this is the Friday evening Fireside Chat here on the New Thought Media Network. On our phone line, we have the Reverend Dr. April Moncrieff, who is a New Thought scholar, and we're talking about how to have a true Lent. So what are some of the things that you would recommend to true students about what to do during this time? What can we do as far as a practical spiritual practice?
Well, I think we can think in terms of three levels. First of all, releasing or letting go. We can think of the obvious physical things of losing weight, giving up smoking or drinking or something like that, those sorts of bad habits. But how about taking it to the mental level? What can we release there or let go of to be more pure channels for spiritual growth and evolution? For instance, giving up judgmental attitudes, thoughts or words of criticism, things like that, which would cover kind of the mental and emotional level. And then we could take it even a level higher to the spiritual level, where we may want to focus more with a greater degree of consecration and dedication to our spiritual practices of perhaps centering, meditation, things that truly have a direct bearing on our spiritual unfoldment. Because as we know, as we make changes at that level, that is going to radiate outward to every area of our being, including our life circumstances, our relationships, even our finances, that everything will begin by being true to the one presence, the one power, which is the spiritual truth of who we really are at the heart of our being.
Yes, and I think the one of the things I think that I recommend to friends of mine is to go ahead and to do 3-column prayer. You go ahead and you take a piece of paper, divide it into 3 columns. The first column is the experience in one sentence that you're having. The second one is the spiritual truth. What's the spiritual truth about it? And then the third column is an affirmative thought that affirms the spiritual truth. And I think that if everyone did that, again, to start not being so caught up in the material, but also just getting beyond that and going into the spiritual, I think that everyone would have a wonderful Easter season here.
Yes, absolutely. Wonderful.
Yes. So I wanted to talk to you also this evening about, I know in the Centers for Spiritual Living, I know that even though that they don't like when I say this, it is based upon principles that Ernest Holmes and also Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, they found in the Bible. So, well, again, the emphasis, I got into trouble at my last location when I went ahead and I talked on the metaphysical meaning from the Bible, again, teaching universal spiritual truth. So how about some of the major events that happened here towards the actual crucifixion? Jesus's triumphal return to Jerusalem, the Last Supper, the Garden of Gethsemane, and even the 3 days in the tomb. So what lessons do they have for us today?
Well, I would say that really every event in the life of Jesus was living symbolism. In other words, they were not isolated events that were just for that time when he lived on earth, but he actually was a living embodiment of metaphysical principles that are eternal and hold true for all of us. So in a sense, everything that he did or enacted is also something that we are called upon to do in the process of our own spiritual unfoldment. So as I was looking over actually Charles Fillmore's book on Keep a True Lent, where he referenced things like Jesus' triumphant return to Jerusalem. Well, what does that mean for us today? Well, when we take the metaphysical meaning of just the word Jerusalem, which means the abode of peace, we're talking about when you're moving toward, actually upward to Jerusalem, you're coming into a higher awareness of spiritual peace. That has its center behind the heart chakra in the physical body, and that any demonstration we might want to make or any experience that we want to see fulfilled in the outer begins with establishing ourselves first in consciousness, in a great awareness of peace. And Jesus really said that, the peace I leave with you is not like the peace that the world giveth. It's a different kind of peace. And that we have to really be centered and poised in that awareness in order to go forth and generate miracles of all types in our own outer three-dimensional living. So it begins with always, of course, in consciousness. And Jesus coming in on Palm Sunday with riding on the back of a donkey with people tossing, palm fronds and things like that as hosannas, as praise, as really as an homage, symbolically referred to an homage toward the recognition of his Christhood, of the Christ center of all of us. That it was, it was a symbolic reenactment of something that went far beyond one individual in one historical time on one particular Sunday. So as I thought of the different events in Jesus' life, I saw how each one has a correspondence in our own life. So that's kind of where I was as I was looking through the last days, the last days of his ministry and his life on earth.
Oh, absolutely. So what do you, what I see personally is, again, and I read a lot. And what I see personally in the life of Jesus, again, from our science mind standpoint, again, he is our, he's not, again, Savior, Redeemer, but he's our way shower teacher. From Dr. Holmes, he believed that, so people ask, well, why did he have to die? And so Dr. Holmes, in many of his books, said that the reason he did that, the reason he ticked the Romans off by coming in through the gate, the reason he went ahead and disrupted the temple was because, again, that what he wanted to show us was the universal principle of eternal life. So what you're thinking about the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus?
Well, I absolutely think it may or may not have occurred in the literal sense, but that's almost secondary to the fact that the work that he did going toward the cross, in which, of course, the word crucifix or cross crucifixion refers to a crossing out. And in the realms of New Thought and in those teachings, we think in terms of the crossing out of error from consciousness, that we do that across the board in order to allow the I am consciousness of us, which really is our own individualized sense of Christhood, that may come to the fore and flower in greater and greater measure. But to do that, we often have to let go of the lesser in order that we can move into and embrace more and more of our own Christhood or our own divine spiritual nature, however you want to phrase it. So that in a sense, the crossing out of error was not so much the annihilation of it as transmuting error thought and that error level of consciousness into a more spiritualized degree of awareness, because energy is never really lost or created, but it can always be what would the word be? It can be converted, it can be transmuted into higher expressions of itself. And that, in a way, is what took place in the work that Jesus did on the cross, because when he was resurrected and then went on into ascension, from that point, we can actually think of crucifixion, resurrection, and ascension as processes, not individual experiences, but as processes that each of us reenacts at various times in the course of our own spiritual unfoldment. So it has, what Jesus did actually has universal significance for all of us, in that we do the same thing, perhaps on a micro scale of what he accomplished on a macro scale, but clearly he was, as Charles Silmer said, our way shower in regeneration. And that's what we're really all about. And that's what Lent is setting the stage for, theoretically and hopefully actuality.
Yeah. If you're wondering who we're speaking to this evening, hi, this is the Friday Evening Fireside Chat here on the New Thought Media Network. We are so honored to have with us New Thought minister, scholar, and also professor at Emerson. And again, that's Dr. April Moncrieff. If you'd like to get her book, it's a wonderful book called The Principles of New Thought. That's available on Amazon. And also she's published over the years other several pamphlets, and also the world famous Marvin the Money Cat, teaching prosperity principles to our wonderful children. I wanted to ask you something, Dr. April, especially with the de-emphasis of Christianity, especially in some of the New Thought centers. Do we do our people a disservice by doing that, especially when we are in a Judeo-Christian environment? Do we do our people a disservice by going ahead and just saying, well, throwing away the baby with the bathwater and not talking about Jesus or God or any of the others? Give me a few thoughts on that.
That is such a wonderful question. I think we can take that wonderful tradition and go deeper in our understanding of what it means. I don't think we need to toss it out as irrelevant in today's world and today's news and so forth. I think we can take those wonderful teachings that Jesus taught and that the Bible in general taught, wonderful principles that show up all through the Bible. I know Emmett Fox said the Bible is a vortex of spiritual energy.
Wow.
That is so true. And who exemplified that better than Jesus? So I think we can take that wonderful example and build on that and expound upon it and expand it. I don't think we should toss it aside or discard it as not really relevant to today's issues.
Right.
So I think it's important to keep the Bible as it is, but let's delve a little deeper and see how it pertains to us today in what we're living through and what we are experiencing.
Which I believe, again, that, again, I think we offer a very practical and also pragmatic way of presenting spirituality that I think that emphasizes the metaphysical, but also emphasizes the mystical also. So, yes. So Dr. April Moncrieff is our guest this evening here on the Fireside Chat here on the New Thought Media Network. And so what, if people are, and again, we broadcast to the whole world here. So what are some books that you would recommend that people would start if they're completely new to our teaching? What are some books that you would recommend as beginner books to be able to start having them think in a new direction?
Well, that's also a wonderful, wonderful question, because my parents were students of Emmett Fox in New York City in the 1930s and 40s. So we always had his literature in our household, along with We Wisdom and the Unity books. And I began reading Emmett Fox as a child of 8 because his prose was so simple and so direct that even my childlike mind could immediately resonate with the truth with a capital T that shone forth from everything that he wrote and said. So I think Emmett Fox is a wonderful place to start, and absolutely Ernest Holmes and the works of the Fillmores and all the Unity writers. Thomas Troward is also very good, but he's a little more complex and deep and uses some of the older terminology. But Fox is straight to the point and very direct, as is Ernest Holmes in the Statement of Truth Principles. I think those are wonderful places to start in divine science, unity, and religious science, now called Centers for Spiritual Living. I think those are great books. Any of those are good. And of course, you might like my principles of New Thought, where I
That's a shameless plug.
isn't that shameless? I want to say
Go ahead.
that I take the traditional doctrines of mainstream Christianity and interpret them in the way that I believe Jesus intended that they be interpreted. So that's people will have to judge for themselves, but that was my thought. I think the traditional church, in many ways, has gone a little bit afield from what Jesus intended, and the early church teachers. I think it's gotten a little bit too involved in doctrines that really are not exactly in sync with what the intent was there when Jesus uttered them, embodied them, and lived them.
Absolutely. I was just thinking of, I'm in a class on Wednesday evenings with Dr. Tom Sanar. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Dr. Tom or not, but he is one of the foremost scholars on Thomas Troward. And he said he said that, again, I really had to take a class with him explaining Troward before I could really go ahead, because again, Troward's English. And the other thing too is, again, that Troward was a Christian. Mm-hmm. And that I think that what's happened over, again, the past several years, again, especially in Centers for Spiritual Living, again, we want to teach spiritual principles, of which the master teacher Jesus and other avatars have taught us, but we don't want to go ahead and we don't want to mention where it all came from. Okay.
Yes.
That it came from the Bible. And again, and I really think that with the advent again of television and the other preachers that are out there on TV, is that a lot of the things that I think that came out of the Word of Faith movement, again, came from New Thought, where you decree a thing and it's done unto you. Where does that come from? That comes from our tradition. So for me, from the pulpit, not to say where it comes from, I just don't want you to be surprised when you come across something in your studies of Ernest Holmes that says that Ernest said that we were a Christian religion, much like what you said, but again, without all the dogma that's associated with it, is that we are closer to the teachings of Jesus. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Yeah, the dogma has in many ways obscured the truth, the capital T truth. We've gotten too caught up, or those branches of so-called Christianity have gotten too caught up in particularly being fixated on sin and salvation. And I think we need to know that the Bible says in Psalms, in returning and rest, ye shall be saved. And
yes.
So all we need to do is turn our consciousness toward the light. That is our saving grace, our saving power, and so forth. We don't need to go through an elaborate self-flagellation of being so immersed in sin that we need to be saved, or we're not going to be admitted to heaven. When we're told specifically by Jesus that the kingdom of God is within you,
right,
and so forth. He always pointed to the way within, that it all begins with us, and that everything proceeds from center to circumference.
Yes.
With beginning to bring it back to thought, beginning at the level of thought. That's where change begins. That's where so-called salvation begins. Change your thinking, repent, rethink. And that's where it begins.
Hi, this is the Friday Evening Fireside Chat here on the New Thought Media Network. Pastor Michael Mangus, and we are joined this evening by the Reverend Dr. April Moncrieff, who is an ordained New Thought minister. She's also a New Thought scholar. She's written a book, which I recommend. If you don't have it in your library, please go get it. The Principles of New Thought, where Dr. April takes the doctrine of the current Christianity and explains it also from a New Thought perspective. So, Dr. April, what do you see as the future of New Thought? What directions are we going in, and are we going in the right direction?
Oh, you give wonderful, very thought-provoking questions. I think more and more people are turning in the direction of New Thought, spirituality, and moving away from the more traditional, tradition-bound denominations. I think there's an expansiveness of consciousness taking place with at every level, where we are becoming more light-filled with a capital L in our thinking, and I think that has to transmit to our spiritual practices. I think there's quite a movement away from the older, more tradition-bound denominational religions and creeds to a more expansive, inclusive understanding of spirituality and all that entails and embodies. And I think it's a positive direction. I think the churches are, many church pews are empty that are just hammering away at the old business of sin and so forth. People are tired of that message. They want to be uplifted and enlightened. Right. And that's where New Thought and groups like New Thought come in.
So and one last question, and then we need to go. So what role does community have to play in that? How do you see gathering together in the future? I mean, we have the technology here, but how do you see the actual brick and mortar centers here in the future?
Wow. Again, I think the church first is something that exists in consciousness, and then an actual community church building or something like that. I think it begins at the level of thought, and then it takes form on the physical level in forms in terms of community groups, perhaps that are more enlightened or that incorporate spiritual practices along with political or social activism. I think we can't leave that out. I think we have to, the saying something like, when you pray, move your feet.
Yes.
I think when we are inspired and enlightened and prompted to do something, that has to translate into making improvements as we are led on the more tangible, three-dimensional level. I think somewhere in unity they say, first to God, then to man, meaning human means, as God directs. I
Yes.
think we first always go get in right alignment with our source energy, then move out into the community as you are prompted to serve or help or be present.
We are all out of time. The Reverend Dr. April Moncrieff, with 2 F's and not 1. If you go to Amazon, you'll be able to pick up her book called The Principles of New Thought, which is a wonderful, wonderful book. And also all of the other books and pamphlets that Dr. April has done. Thank you so very much for your time this evening. Thank you. It's been the half hour has gone by very quickly. Thank you for your knowledge and for your service to all the people here in New Thoughts. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Pastor Michael. It's been a pleasure to be here.
All right. So I want to wish everyone again a very pleasant, good weekend. And also, again, if you can go and pay homage to the Reverend Dr. Charlotte Stokes Manning. Again, we will have the broadcast tomorrow at 2 o'clock Eastern. We will rebroadcast the service from the Unity of Washington, D.C. And so, again, on behalf of all of us here at the New Thought Media Network, Pastor Michael Mangus and I am wishing you a very pleasant, good evening and a wonderful week.
Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, for your continued support. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown Atlanta, for your monthly contribution. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, for your monthly contribution. And please help us welcome Ohm Center for Spiritual Living in La Mesa, California. Thank you for your monthly donation. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, for your most generous donation. And a special thanks to Hefferlin Foundation for your generous technology grant. And Suze Ajit, thank you for your very generous donation. And a super special thank you to Dr. Tracy Brown, RSCP. Thanks for being a super donor. And a big shout out to all our committed donors.